This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com with my weekly review of the information I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter. There's a lot more info in the newsletter that I don't find interesting that people can order for themselves if they want to know all the details. Let's start with WWE news, and there is a lot of news this week. The August 10th NXT taping at the Capitol Wrestling Center, where they do their tapings now, which are free and only hold about 180 people, is the first NXT taping in history not to have all seats reserved within the first 24 hours. So that shows you that there's definitely a decline in interest in NXT, and WWE cut a bunch of NXT wrestlers today. Mercedes Martinez, Leon Ruff, Tyler Rust, Jake Atlas, who I actually interviewed before. He was from PCW Ultra. Aries Sterling, Kona Reeves, Zachariah Smith, Asher Hale, Giant Zangier, Stephen Smith, Denzel Jornet, and there was a few others that I know I'm forgetting about. I'm going to look them up here because maybe I didn't write them all down. There was definitely Bobby Fish. Yeah, I did know Bobby Fish a little bit. I drove him to the airport once. Aries Sterling, Bronson Reed. So a bunch of NXT people have been cut. Adam Cole's contract apparently expired a few weeks ago, and he's agreed to work through his current program and finish out the summer. He is definitely one of the most overrated wrestlers today, in my opinion. Looks like a high school kid. And yeah, I'm not a fan at all. Apparently, the story going around is it was Canyon Seaman who actually let this happen, where like a wrestler's contract expires while they're in the middle of an angle. So this may have been one of the reasons why they fired Seaman. And yes, I'm not making a joke. His name is Seaman. And by the way, this guy, his background was in tennis before wrestling, and they wonder why their roster sucks so badly. They hired a tennis guy as head of their talent relations for wrestling for years. Pete Dunne, his contract also ends around August 31st or September 1st. Another mini wrestler. I'm sure AEW would love to have him, since they seem to like those little guys, although they do definitely have some good big guys in AEW, such as Lance Archer. WWE also cut ties with Ric Flair on August 2nd and announced he was released on the 3rd. Flair is 72 and apparently had a big contract as an ambassador to WWE, as I see my dog walking around down here. Apparently, the current deal that Flair was under paid him more than he ever made in WCW, so it was a very good deal. It's unclear whether Flair asked for his release or if McMahon actually released him. Flair himself is saying he asked for his release. Meltzer notes that Flair and Tony Khan have been friends even before AEW, as Tony Khan was a guest at Flair's 5th wedding in 2018. which was before AEW even started. So Meltzer points out that he would actually be surprised if Flair doesn't end up in AEW, as I'm going to grab my dog here because she's walking around and I know people like to see her. WWE also released Wyndham Rotundo, a.k.a. Bray Wyatt, on July 31st. Apparently, Rotundo, of course, he was the son of Mike Rotundo, IRS. He spent his entire career in WWE. So he was actually trained by WWE. Never had to pay any dues or anything like that on the indies. So do I feel bad for him? No. He was also making over $1 million a year, so he'll be just fine. John Cena actually made a comment about WWE relying on older wrestlers like himself and Goldberg as far as being draws for their major events, such as SummerSlam coming up. He said, quote, "Man, I wish there was some sort of fountain of youth where I could be a full-time contributor. The longer WWE continues to bet on an aging prospect, that makes their future a little less stable," end quote. Well, I do think the problem is none of the new guys are getting over. That's a sad part about it. A combination of terrible writing and wrestlers that aren't connecting with the fans, the mainstream fans. There are some that the smart marks love, but your average person just does not find entertaining. For like Ricochet, for example. Nice guy. I've done an interview with him, but there's absolutely nothing that I find interesting about him. He's just like an acrobat, and I don't like going to the circus, so I don't like watching acrobatic wrestling. Natalya underwent ankle surgery on July 30th in Birmingham, and she should be back in action in only a few weeks. One of the advantages of working for WWE is getting fast treatment. If she was having to rely on the Canadian healthcare system, she'd probably have to wait 6 to 8 months just to get the surgery. The September 10th WWE SmackDown show at Madison Square Garden featuring John Cena and both Raw and SmackDown top stars has only about 6,800 paid right now. Compare that to AEW's United Center show August 20th in Chicago for their Rampage taping. They sold 13,600 tickets in the first day of sales. That's the show that CM Punk is supposed to be returning on. So that goes to show you that AEW overall is a hotter ticket. However, SummerSlam has like 40,000 tickets out for their Las Vegas pay-per-view. However, the show after SummerSlam, Extreme Rules in Columbus, Ohio, on September 26th, only has about 3,500 paid right now. Compare that to AEW All Out, also in Chicago, on September 5th. That has 10,000 tickets sold. Dynamite this week did a 0.46 rating, tying its second best rating ever. It was taped in Jacksonville in front of 2,600 fans with 1,600 paid, so there was 1,000 comps. NXT this week only did a 0.1 rating and had 180 fans, so it's safe to say that AEW is not comparable to NXT anymore. It's more comparable to Raw and SmackDown at this point anyways. Raw did a 0.51 rating. It was recorded in Chicago before 12,629 fans with 11,300 paid. SmackDown last week in Minneapolis did a 0.57 rating and had 8,600 fans total in attendance. As I previously reported, and this seems like a bad idea to me, AEW is doing a 4-man announce team for their Rampage taping with Excalibur, Taz, Chris Jericho, and Mark Henry. For one thing, from a business standpoint, I know you signed these guys to contracts, but why pay a fourth guy? As I previously said, like, the 2-man teams are the best, but when you have 4 people there, as I suck at commentating, but that would be a nightmare to like commentate with 4 people, trying not to talk over people and so forth. And it just seems like, as a business person, it seems like a waste of money to have 4 commentators. But AEW is also hiring like so many wrestlers these days. It seems they don't even care about wasting money. Like, they just apparently hired Everrise, a couple of NXT jobbers, not even main roster jobbers, that were jobbers on the indie scene before that. So why you would hire them, I have no idea. There's a lot better talent than them out there. They also hired Ruby Riott, who has been recently released by WWE. She's expected to start whenever her compete ends. Bobby Eaton passed away on August the 4th at 62. Apparently his body was in really rough shape. He drank heavily and had health issues that caused him to gain a lot of weight and develop a serious heart issue. At one point, he was hired by WWE to coach developmental talent, but his issues were so bad, they had to let him go. Now, when Meltzer says his issues were bad, I don't know if that's his health issues he's talking about or his drinking issues. I have no idea. As I've stated, my most interesting memories of Bobby Eaton was when he was teaming with Steven Regal in WCW. Other than that, I was never really a fan of his, but I'm sorry that he passed away. Jody Hamilton, who I did know a little bit from my time in Deep South Wrestling that he ran, passed away at 82 on August the 3rd. Meltzer points out that when the Deep South Wrestling that he ran was a development area, a lot of the talent were not happy there. A lot of that had to do with Bill DeMott's both abusive and bizarre training tactics. Meltzer mentions that Kenny Omega actually almost quit wrestling because of his bad experiences in Deep South. And apparently in 2007, John Laurinaitis showed up and announced out of nowhere they were cutting ties with Deep South and moving the entire developmental program to Tampa. And Jody Hamilton sued WWE over this, claiming WWE broke its contract through fraudulent means and left him, noting that the contract required a 90-day notice to break, and they just came in and shut it down. The suit claimed Laurinaitis told any wrestler who stayed loyal to Hamilton or would work his shows that they would be fired, never work in wrestling again. Then Hamilton got 2 wrestlers as witnesses to back up that claim, and the case ended with an undisclosed settlement. Now, recently, John Paz did 2 interviews with both Tyson Kidd and Angelina Love, who were both in Deep South. And they both mentioned in their interviews that are on this channel that is indeed true, that they were told by Johnny Ace that anyone that came back to Deep South Wrestling after they packed it all up would be fired. Hamilton also ran the WCW power plant. Speaking of people being fired, apparently Teddy Long has been fired from SWE Wrestling in Texas. Very smart move. He was a cancer to that company. He had been the head booker there and was a terrible booker. And Lacey Von Erich is the new owner of SWE, so that's a step in the right direction. Long was a big waste of money, in my opinion. Bert Prentice, a longtime manager and promoter in Tennessee, passed away this week at the age of 63. He had been battling cancer. The day before his death, he revealed he had cancer, would be stepping away from wrestling, saying his sister would be taking over his USA Championship Wrestling company. In MMA news, UFC on ESPN 28 did a 0.25 rating, with the prelims doing a 0.15. So the prelims of UFC on ESPN did better than NXT. Fedor Emelianenko will face Tim Johnson on October 23rd, Bellator in Moscow. Now, this is disappointing because both Jake Hagar, a.k.a. Jack Swagger, and I forget what name he uses in AEW. I think he goes by Jake Hagar. And Josh Barnett, who I interviewed recently, both wanted to fight Fedor. And I'll be honest, I might not follow MMA that closely, but they're going with Tim Johnson, who I've never even heard of. And even Meltzer points out that this is a unusual decision because Meltzer feels that they should have put Fedor in there either with another legend like Barnett or like someone he could squash quickly. Yet Tim Johnson actually has a chance of beating Fedor, and he's not really known. So it seems an unusual choice. Like, at least with Swagger against Fedor, that would have been a fight more in Fedor's favor. And it would have also been good publicity for Swagger, and it would have got a lot of publicity. And Fedor versus Barnett would have had a lot of publicity too. I don't understand Bellator. Bellator really isn't popular these days. So that's another dumb decision in my opinion. Thanks for the $5 tip, Richard. I appreciate it. Yes, Spencer, I did talk about all the WWE releases. Someone says WWE should cut the bonuses of Vince and his family. If they want to cut people, to be honest, I would have cut all those people too. The only one I wouldn't have cut is Ric Flair. But they weren't using Ric Flair very well anyways. And Ric Flair it'll probably be better for Ric Flair's career to go to AEW, in my opinion, because like he's already been in WWE for a long time, and like him going to AEW will be fresh, and yeah, it would be good for AEW too, because, for instance, CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, those aren't wrestlers I'm fans of. I'll watch it once to see their first appearance or whatever. But Ric Flair, I'm a fan of, even though he's 72. I'll probably watch at least the highlights of everything he does in AEW. He's still very possibly the best on the mic out there today. Brian agrees with me. Mike, is 205 Live still a thing? My God. Patrick Carroll, I think he's talking about Adam Cole and Pete Dunne being vanilla midgets. Mike agrees that Cole is overrated. Joe says his little sister could take Adam Cole. Like, this is the kind, it's the people like Adam Cole that make wrestling just so uninteresting. Like, wrestler, I interviewed Mike O'Hearn Titan from American Gladiators this week, and he brought up like the coolness of wrestlers being larger than life characters, which they're more few and far between now. Boulder says NXT's new set is the shit. I did watch the NXT highlights this week, and they had one girl making out with a guy in the ring. That was the most interesting thing. Mike makes fun of the guy named Seaman that WWE released. What a silly name. Brian says Adam Cole's physique is weird. Watch USA choke to France right now. Someone says, I have zero interest in the Olympics for some reason. Dave says back to volleyball for Seaman. Mike, do I think Hercules and Crush will get into the WWE Hall of Fame eventually? Yes. I agree. Boulder feels the fake cage holding back the wrestlers in the crowd pretending to be fans at NXT is crap. He doesn't like it. Noble gives me respect. Thank you. DJ says, I'm more over than the majority of the WWE roster. Believe it or not, that's actually true. For instance, Everrise had their own YouTube channel, and they've been in WWE for years. And my YouTube channel is way, like, incomparably more popular than theirs. Zack Ryder, who was in WWE for years and started his YouTube channel long before me. Mine is more popular, but I don't care. I don't want to be in WWE. I just want to keep my channel growing. And I forgot to plug some of this stuff I'm working with. For instance, this event is going to be live on Fight, but will also eventually be on the Hannibal TV too. World Class Pro Wrestling, October 3rd in Wichita, as well as PCW Ultra, October 22nd in LA. And of course, the poster will be done Sunday, but Great North Wrestling also returns to Kingston, Ontario, August the 28th. Tickets on sale now at ticketweb.ca. And that's halfway between Ottawa and Toronto. So the event will be from about 7 to 9:30. It's only a 2-hour drive from Ottawa, a 2-hour drive from Toronto. You can be home by midnight. And I believe this will be the first indoor wrestling event in Ontario since the pandemic. So it will be historical, and it will be recorded for the Hannibal TV. DJ Razor says Ric Flair back on TNT and TBS makes sense. I agree. And as much as people will say I'm an AEW hater, I'm not. There's some things I like in it, some things I don't like. Same with WWE. But I do think competition is good because WWE got really stale. And to the point where they're actually slapping the wrestling fans in the face. And you guys can tell me in the comments if you agree. When they insist that they're not wrestling, their performers are storytellers. They don't do wrestling. They're entertainment, even though it's called World Wrestling Entertainment. They say they're not a wrestling show. Well, I guarantee you, nobody that's not a wrestling fan is watching your show because it's even hard to watch for wrestling fans. And by being embarrassed to call yourselves wrestling, you're slapping the wrestling fans in the face. What, is wrestling too low for you? It is an insult. Patrick, if Bray is money, they would have kept him. The rubber mask, I'm sorry, that's really lame. And he's been around in so many different gimmicks. I don't know. I understand he has his fans, but I'm definitely not one of them. The John Cena versus Bray Wyatt match from WrestleMania was one of the worst matches I ever saw in my life, if not the worst. Mike says Cena is right about WWE relying on old wrestlers. Joe says the greatest channel in the history of our great sports. Well, it's only going to get better as time gets on. Patrick, how do you get over when you're booked like shit? You can get over if you're good. To make excuses are just excuses. I guarantee you I could have got over as a wrestler no matter how they booked me. I guarantee you. I didn't even get any opportunities ever in WWE or TNA or even the lower companies like Ring of Honor, and I got over on my own. If you're good, you'll get over on your own. Chris Jericho was giving shit in WCW, got over on his own. Happened many times throughout history. You can use the excuse of the writing all you want. You can find ways to get over. Jason, my day's great. I heard from 2 sources today about Teddy Long getting fired from that company that he was ruining, and I just have been laughing my ass off all day. Wendell, I drink a lot of coffee. As far as my supplements, I drink a lot of egg whites. I'm going to run after this. I did chest and back at the gym earlier. Ivan, yeah, Alberto Del Rio's show did not draw. I heard that. I didn't expect it to draw. Alan Kesselman says Excalibur is lame. DJ Razor says wasting money. That's WWE's motto. Well, they're cutting costs, actually. If anyone's wasting money, it's AEW. The guy's dad is worth $14 billion, so I guess money just doesn't matter. But in my opinion, they hire way too many people. As Amy says, I guess he just has access to billions and doesn't care. Oh, we got some haters on here. Patrick Carroll says RIP to probably beautiful Bobby Eaton. Someone says Excalibur was the reason the mute button was invented. I'm surprised they kept him on after that video came out of him and Kevin Owens using the N-word on some PWG show, and they actually were using it on the mic in some lame angle. And there was like 50 people in the crowd too. It's like on an indie show, you can say no. You're not getting paid huge money. You're not under contract. If a promoter goes out there and tells you to use the N-word in a promo, you can say no. This is not Hollywood where you're making hundreds of thousands for a movie. Anyways. Brian thinks I'm negative. Well, I'm actually a very positive person overall. I just speak my mind. I call things as I see them. and I'm actually doing great. My job is this. I don't even have to leave my house other than to work out. I actually really enjoy my job. I get to talk to my heroes, the people that I grew up idolizing, and I have a beautiful dog. She certainly wouldn't say I'm negative. Do you want me to fake it and pretend I like midget wrestling and acrobatic wrestling and pretend I get excited over that stuff? Would that make you feel better? Bronson Reed is the 2021 PN News. I don't even know who Bronson Reed is. May have been one of the guys that was fired. Arthur says, any update on Terry Funk? The last I heard was from Tommy Dreamer, who said he is in a retirement home and he's doing well. Murd says wrestling needs to be in the garbage. I don't know. There's some good stuff coming up. I have confidence in companies like PCW Ultra. Amy says WTF Fedor isn't fighting Jake Hagar. LOL, yeah. I don't know. Who is my favorite legend to interview? Well, since the Honky Tonk Man is the highest viewed shoot interview on YouTube with nearly 4 million hits, I'd have to say the Honky Tonk Man. Someone else saying my videos are negative. Well, no one's holding a gun to your head to watch. You must like them if you're watching them and commenting on them. So thanks. Thanks for making me the money. Alan brings up Raven was more believable than Drake Maverick. As much as I'm friends with Drake's wife, I guess I won't comment on that, since I am friends with Drake's wife, who is talented, and I would like to see her in Great North Wrestling when the border opens up. But since you bring up Raven, I'll end on this. September 18th at the ECW Arena, Raven will be bringing his last agent to take on Little Guido. Should be very interesting.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month.